Okay. We'll be ready to go here in a second. Wait a couple of minutes. Give whatever couple of people that want to fall in a couple of minutes to join. We know YouTube isn't the best when it comes to notifications. And then when we get into it, I will try to get directly to the points and make this as short as possible. So, forgot to grab a drink. Check something real quick. The YouTube studio. Just need to nope, I was looking to hit the monetize button. Okay, I think we can go ahead and go on. What is good, everybody? Sorry about the chair squeaking. You probably hear the fan in the back too. It is warm in here. My apartment is hot to begin with because of the heaters. And then you add the fact that I've got 2 out of my 3 PCs produce a lot of heat. So when all 3, or when the 2 PCs that I'm speaking of run, they do create a lot of heat, and you feel it. So what is good, everybody? Excuse me. It is the Godfather of VR, the ageless one of the man Lincoln Clay, and we are back. And we are live, and we are here to talk about the RTX 4090. I just picked this up. I think the exact date was October 27th. I put it through a battery of benchmarks, and I actually still have a couple of more benchmark videos that I'll probably put out, but I think I've done enough right now that I think I can give you guys a rough estimate of whether the 4090 is for you or not. So, and I can already feel the thirst coming on. So, might be a little bootleggish, but I think I'm going to get up, go into the kitchen for a second. My hands all dry and ashy and shit, and grab a drink real quick. So just give me a second. Let me grab a drink, and then we'll get cracking. Okay, let's have a little swig here. I should have muted it. Sorry about the gulping and shit. Next time I'll mute it. So, I originally did not plan to buy a 4090. And the more it wore on me, probably with a little bit of help from Ham, I decided to go ahead and buy the 4090. When I had the 3080 Ti in my PC, uh, as far as the set of course the competizione goes, I was using the Oculus Quest 2 or Meta Quest 2 as it's called now. And Ham sent me some settings. Told you to wait until RDNA 3. Just kidding. You know what, man? You know something about these AMD cards? It has, I thought the console war was bad. I didn't know the GPU war was this bad. Um, it Those who don't like Nvidia seem to have a lot of disdain for Nvidia. What I've been seeing is when the 4090 came out, it was highly criticized for its price, $1,600. But I believe the 3090 Ti launched at $1,500. So I thought that was an increase, that the $100 increase for the 4090. Yeah, it's a $100 increase, but I figured if you're already paying $1,500, I guess at that point, what's another $100? But those who don't seem to like Nvidia, the really big YouTubers, that's been their biggest criticism, was the price of the card. The AMD cards do look good though. For the price, conscious AMD seems the way to go. And so now the AMD cards are out. So from what I understand, the 7900 XTX competes with the 4080 16 gig. Some people saying it can. Some people say it can beat it. Some people are saying that it's neck and neck, whatever. From what I'm seeing of these videos, it seems like Space Innocent, what's up? It almost seemed like the GPU fanboys they're not happy, because I guess they're okay with the price, but I guess they're just not happy that the 7900 XTX did not beat or at least tie the 4090. And I kind of don't get it. So I don't know. I mean, the 7900 XTX, I don't know. I mean, I never bought an AMD card. All my cards have been RTX cards, and I probably would have still went with I still would have went with the Nvidia. For VR and ray tracing, you still want Nvidia card. Yeah. And I don't have any regrets about buying the 4090. I will say before we get into whether or not I think it's a good card for you. So yesterday, I was playing Modern Warfare 2 with my son. And at some point, I thought I smelled my computer burning. And I said, oh, shit, no, don't tell me my plug melted. But like every other day, I've been checking my plug. And there's no signs of melting. And from what I'm gathering is, it seems like the plugs for the AIB cards with 150 volt wiring, those are the ones that seem to be melting from what I'm gathering. But in any case, my plug is fine. My 4090 is fine. Everything's good. In fact, as far as that computer goes, I was a little bit late for a couple of reasons. One was, as I just said, I had to check that plug to make sure it wasn't melting. And then I just got done buying the DDR5 RAM for that computer, because I just bought another motherboard. And I'll actually show you guys. I posted a picture on Twitter, but I'll show you guys real quick. Okay, this is the Gigabyte RS Ultra DDR5 motherboard, and dang, bro, you future proof as fuck. Yeah, and I just got done buying some Trident. I think it's G Trident DDR5 RAM, 32 gigs, with a speed of 6,000 hertz. So yeah, we're gonna get to what prompted me to make these upgrades, because currently in my PC it's got 64 gigs of DDR4 at 3600. So give me a second here. I'm just checking something real quick. Just checking something on eBay really quick. DDR5 5200. Okay. We can proceed. I had to check my food. What was it you said about smelling my computer? Yesterday, I was playing Modern Warfare with my son, and at some point, I thought I smelled something burning, so I went into a panic, thinking, "Oh shit, my plug is finally melted on the 4090." And that's one of the reasons why I was a little bit late getting this podcast going, because I had to check my computer real quick, and the plug's fine. I think I got one of the good plugs. I think Nvidia, for the Nvidia themselves, I think the plugs that comes with the Founders Edition cards, I think those are fine. So I haven't had any problems. I don't know if it's just a bad batch of plugs that got out, because I've checked with a couple of other people. Like Ham hasn't had any problems with his plug, and Impatient Fire hasn't had any problems either. So I think maybe it's just a bad batch that got out. I don't know. So let's talk about these benchmarks that I ran. So I guess, like, talking about the benchmarks, I want to talk about the benchmarks. I put up a few videos, but I've actually done a lot of benchmarks. So on VR games, on sim racing games in VR, and a couple of other flat screen games. As long as you make sure the plugs are not bent too much, it should be fine. Yeah, my case has got a little bit of room, so it's not really bending the cord. So not to the point where it should break the solder or anything like that. So it should be fine. So So I will start with the games that I benchmark. So we'll start with the sim racing games in VR. We'll start with the big elephant in the room, and that is a SATA Corsa Competizione. That's really the main reason why I bought the 4090, because ACC is a poorly optimized game in VR by their own admission. And when I had the 3080 Ti in my PC, I had the resolution of my Quest 2 maxed out at 2736p, but all the graphical settings had to be manipulated in order for me to get a good performance. So whenever I went full-blown VR epic settings, to to me, it seemed like it ran okay until you got to the turns. Then it would start having that reprojection look to it. And some of you may have seen that benchmark for ACC, the 3080 Ti versus the 4090. And so, yeah, hands down, it is a big improvement with the 4090 over the 3080 Ti. And even just recently, I was running it in 90 hertz. And the truth of the matter is, all this time that I've been VR sim racing up until now, I never ran any of these games at 90 hertz. I was satisfied with the 72 hertz that I was getting out of the Quest 2 because I wanted to crank the resolution and the settings up. But the 4090 allowed me to crank up the resolution. Well, the resolution was already cranked up, but it allowed me to crank up the graphic settings and still good performance. So ACC is great on your monitor, but VR is bad. Damn, on my GTX 1080, lowly i7 would definitely struggle. Well, oh boy. See, the thing about the VR thing is it depends on several things. It depends on your PC. Cold Yogurt, what's up? Said PSVR 2 better melt our praise. I got you. With ACC and VR, it depends on your PC specs. It depends on what headset you're running. It depends on what resolution you're running that headset at. And it depends on the refresh rate that you're running it at. So all that stuff comes into play. And I was hoping that the 4090 would allow me to crank up everything. And for the most part, it does. I was just a couple of days ago, I was running ACC at 2736p at VR Epic settings. And I had it set to 90 hertz, and it ran so smooth. So I would probably say ACC, like the 4090 for ACC in VR using the MetaQuest, I think it's worth the upgrade. If you had something like a 3080, I think it's worth the upgrade. Moving on to the next game that I tested, that would be Automobilista 2, which I did put out a couple of videos for that. So the game already ran phenomenal. Automobilista 2 is arguably the best optimized game for VR as far as sim racing goes. I never cranked it up to 90 hertz with the 3080 Ti, but I think it could have done it. In all these games that I speak of, I had the graphical settings set at either Epic or Ultra, whatever the maximum setting was. So I think the 3080 Ti could have run Automobilista 2 at high ultra settings at 90 frames per second with the resolution maxed out at 2736p. I think it could have done it, but I wouldn't have had any performance headroom left. In the case of the 4090, yeah, easy. Piece of cake. That being said, if Automobilista 2 is your favorite sim racing game in VR, and that's all you plan on playing, I'm not sure you need to upgrade to the 4090. Cold Yogurt, you said I have a 3080 Ti. You're talking to Tantra, but the 4090 is double the power. I'm looking into the Pimax 12K. Cold Yogurt, I'll get to as soon as I get done talking about my thoughts on VR sim racing, I'll come to the built from the ground up native VR games. Next up, F122 in VR. Same deal, ultra settings, maxed out resolution. Um, the 3080 Ti, I was able to run it easy in ultra settings at 72 hertz, and I left it there. I know it would have done 80 hertz. 90 hertz at ultra settings, I'm not sure. But at medium settings that I originally had it at, I think the 3080 Ti would run F122 at 90 hertz. But again, 4090, piece of cake. Easy. So if you're running something like a 3080 Ti on F122, and that is another game where if that is the only game you plan to play, or I'll throw Automobile Lista 2 in there. So if Automobile Lista 2 and F122 are the only games you plan on playing, sim racing and VR, again, I'm not exactly sure you need the 4090. I mean, if you want to get it and have that extra horsepower, great, but I don't think you necessarily need it. Now, the game that really surprised me was Project Cars 2. That game seemed to have taken up the most resources on my PC. I tested it, I think I ran it on the 4090 when I did a live benchmark stream. I think I ran it on the 4090, and I was able to run it at 72 hertz max settings, but there wasn't a whole lot of overhead left. So yeah, if you got a 3080 Ti and you want to run it at max settings, with a refresh rate higher than 72, yeah, you're definitely going to need a 4090 for that game. Tantrum, I have a Rift S over here, and to me, it's awesome headset. It only runs at 80 hertz and have a lower resolution, and even its FOV is slightly smaller than the OG PSVR, but it is a PC VR headset. You know what, Tantrum? And these thoughts that I'm giving you guys about whether or not on these VR sims, whether or not you should upgrade to the 4090, I'm saying this based on the MetaQuest with everything's maxed out, and then the HP Reverb, because a couple of days after I got my 4090, I got an HP Reverb G2, and I think it's about as demanding as the Quest 2, but there are some things about it that one of the things about the Reverb G2 is when you play a game in VR, the game is basically being projected 4 times. You have the game itself, where it's being projected onto your monitor. You have the Windows Mixed Reality launcher, where the game is playing through that. Then you have the headset. It's being projected through the headset, and if you have OBS open, it's being projected through that. So it's being projected 4 times. So because of that, as well as it being a native 4K headset, I think that makes the Reverb G2 a little bit more demanding than the Quest 2. So yeah, the Reverb G2 at 90 hertz. And keep in mind that I was running it at 3100p with the graphics maxed out on ACC, F122, and Automobile Lista 2. What I got was on ACC, I was getting about 70 frames per second. On Automobile Lista 2 and F122, I was getting 90 frames per second. It was buttery smooth at 3100p. It looked gorgeous. Now, ACC on the HP Reverb G2 at 3100p. It was the sharpest that I had ever seen ACC. It looked phenomenal. But the problem with the HP Reverb is that in order for it to look smooth, you have to maintain at least 80 frames. If it drops under 80 frames, you're going to start seeing it. It's going to look a little bit skittish, and you're going to see something that looks a little bit like reprojection. So, so when it comes down to it, when it comes down to my sim racing titles, if I'm playing ACC and I want to max out the headset, if I want to max out the graphical settings and still run 90 frames per second, I got to use the Quest. If, I could, if I use the reverb, I can still hit the 90 frames if I do some manipulating. If I use the reverb on ACC, I have to turn it down to high settings from VR settings, VR high. Doesn't look as good, but it runs smooth. It runs a gorgeous 90 frames per second. Or if I wanted to keep the VR Epic settings, I have to turn the resolution down. Now keep in mind that I've got the resolution pretty high on the reverb. I've got it set to run at 3100p. That is pretty high. If I wanted to get better performance, I would have to turn the resolution down to maybe 2160 or something like that. And DLSS is useless in VR. DLSS actually makes the picture look more blurry, and it does not add frames. So when it comes to VR, DLSS is dog shit. So coming back to that Rift S tantrum, I think the Rift S is a great headset. There's only one problem with the Rift S. The cord is faulty. To me, I don't know if it's a designer fault or if it's a manufacturer's defect, but that cord will eventually start to fail. And if you're playing games where you're talking to people, eventually that cord's going to go bad, and there's going to be a buzzing noise going through that cord. You won't hear it, but everybody that you're, if you're doing social apps or party chat, whatever, they're going to hear it, and they're going to be annoyed by it. But other than that, the Rift S is a great headset. It's a native PC headset, and it doesn't take a lot to run it. If you were to stick with, in my opinion, if you got a 3080 Ti and you're running a Rift S and you're satisfied with that, I don't see any point in getting a 4090, because that 3080 Ti would be powerful enough to pretty much push any VR sim game at max settings at the 80 frames, at the 80 hertz that it puts out. So I don't those kind of circumstances, I don't think you would need it. 1 second, I gotta starting to get a stuffy nose here. Hold on. Tantrum, you said never had core problem yet, but never streamed YouTube with it. So yeah, that seems to be the biggest problem with it. The Rift S that I have now, it's weird. It works on this PC that I'm sitting at here, and it works on my PC in the bedroom. But my PC with the 4090 on it, the headset runs, but the audio doesn't work. The audio is crap. Sometimes it comes in, but only for a few seconds, and then it goes out. So let's talk about the couple of games the flat screen games that I ran benchmarks on, and that would be Modern Warfare 2 and Cyberpunk. So let's talk about Cyberpunk first, because when the 4090 came out and everybody was running all these benchmarks, Cyberpunk in Microsoft Flight Simulator were two of the demanding games that people were running a lot of benchmarks on. And so, as far as Cyberpunk goes, most of the benchmarks that I saw, people were running with DLSS on. I don't know what DLSS settings they were using. I don't know if they were using quality or performance or whatever the case may be. For me, I had DLSS set to auto. So I've ran benchmarks with both the 3080 Ti and the 4090. So let's talk about the 3080 Ti first. So what I was getting with the 3080 Ti, I had everything set on ultra or high. I had the ray tracing set on ultra. I had DLSS on auto. So when I ran that benchmark, I got about 58, and the resolution was 2160p. And so what I got was about an average of 58 frames per second on average. I think the high might have been like 80 something. Tantrum. I'll say this. If I can run a game at max resolution with 2.0 super sampling and a Rift S, it looks so sharp, but I don't run it that high as I will lose too much frame rate like that. At 1.4 super sampling some games are okay with that setting. Cold Yogurt, I need 4090 for No Man's Sky. The new updates will allow you to build inside and outside your capital ship. I have not tried No Man's Sky with the 4090, but I will. I will say this about 4090, about No Man's Sky. When you load that game up, it kills your GPU. One time I had the Oculus debug tool open, and I had, the performance graph. You got the frame rate and the performance graph. I had it set for 72 hertz, and once I loaded the game, the performance headroom dropped all the way down to like negative 110%. And then once the game finally loaded up, I think it came back up to like the performance headroom came back up to like 5-10%. So I will have to I'll check. But keep in mind, Cold Yogurt, when I test it, I'll run two tests. I'll run a test with both the HP Reverb and I'll run the test with the Quest 2. But both of them, their resolutions are going to be maxed out. The Quest 2 maxes out at 2736p as a PC headset. And because of the Steam VR sliders at 100%, the Reverb G2 is at 3100. You could take it up higher than that, but at 100%, 3100p is the resolution. Let's see here. 3080 is not enough. It's because Game Up it causes Game Up loads the universe. Huh. Oh, okay, gotcha. So yeah, I'll get around to trying that. So coming back to the Cyberpunk thing. So with the settings that I told you guys, 2160p resolution, ultra high settings, DLSS auto, ray tracing ultra. I got about 58 frames per second average. Then I came back and ran the same benchmark without DLSS, and I think I probably got maybe 39 frames per second. And this was with the 3080 Ti. So I come back and I run these benchmarks with the 4090. So what I was getting with DLSS off on those same settings with the 4090, I was getting, I think, 60 frames per second. Again, this is 2160p, ultra high settings, ray tracing on ultra with DLSS off. I was getting about 60 frames per second. Then I turned the DLSS on and ran it again, and I averaged about 93 frames. So some of the other big YouTubers, I expected theirs to be a little bit faster than mine as far as frames. I expected them to have a little bit more frames than me for a couple of reasons. One is a lot of these YouTubers have the new i9 13900K, and I've got the 12900K. A lot of them had DDR5 RAM, and because a lot of them were using capture cards, it was not taxing their PC as much. Whereas my case, when I ran these benchmarks and I was recording it with OBS open, and OBS, when you open it, it can tax your GPU by up to 25%. Like right now, let me see here. Right now, the CPU is 2.8. But let me open up the task manager real quick. And I'm looking at OBS right now. Holy shit! Let me show you guys this. Unbelievable. Hold on. Look at this shit right here. OBS Studio. It is taking up 46% of my GPU right now. 47, 48. And because of OBS, my numbers did not match up to some of the benchmarks that I was seeing. That's absolutely insane. So when you look at the CPU, OBS is only taking up 4.5% of the CPU, but it's taking 48% of the GPU, and the power usage is high. So when I was running those benchmarks on my 4090s, that was one of the reasons why my numbers didn't match up with some of the others. So let me come back. Close that and bring back the good old 4090 pick. So okay, so let's talk. So with Cyberpunk, I was seeing benchmarks where people were getting maybe as high as 120 something frames with Cyberpunk. And so when I did the research, like I said, it came down to several things. The person running that benchmark had an i9 13900K. They had 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM. And because they were using a capture card, it was not, their PC was not being taxed the way it would be if they were to open up OBS. So let's move on to Modern Warfare. So I ran benchmarks with Modern Warfare, and same deal. Ultra settings, 4K, no DLSS. With the 4090, it was weird. I was getting numbers all over the place. One day I would get 114 frames. The next day I would get like 101. The next day I would get 95. It was weird. And then, so that bothered me a little bit. And then I think another thing that started to bother me was Like I watched some of Ham's benchmark videos, and I think one of them in particular, like he did an ACC benchmark with VR high settings with the HP reverb, and he was pretty much running a locked 90 frames. I tried the same thing, and because I had all these elements, we had the HP reverb, we had all those windows open, as I was telling you, the Windows launcher, the game itself, the game being projected through the headset, and the image being projected through OBS, as well as, you know, how much OBS taxes. And then the overlay software I was using is called FPS Overlay. Like, we talking like 5 apps open. So VR High, when I ran the benchmark, I was getting around, on VR High, I was getting frame rates in the 70s. And then when I came back and did it again, without all that shit, without OBS, with OBS closed and closing every app that I can think of, when I ran the benchmarks again, I was getting 90 frames per second on the straights. But then when I go through the really tight corners, if there was a bunch of cars in that corner, my frame rate would drop to about 85. So I was okay with that. Now, ACC on Epic settings, mine versus him, I think he was averaging in, you know, anywhere between 65 and 75 frames. I was averaging between 55 and 65. But I don't know. I let those numbers take me down a rabbit hole. This shit was bugging me. So coming back to the Modern Warfare thing, as I was saying, I got about 114 frames. That was the best scenario I had. But I was watching other big YouTubers. They were getting like 150 frames per second. So that really bugged me. So I was like, that's what started me down this road. So I'm like, okay. And the thing I found out about about DDR4, DDR5, I think with DDR4, the common speeds are 3200 and 3600. With DDR5, it starts at 4800. The RAM that I got is 6000. I'll show you guys the RAM that I got. I just bought it on eBay, so nope, we don't want that. There we go. Get this real quick. So I'm going to show you guys the RAM that I bought. All right, 1 second. 1 second, folks. I'm going to show you guys the RAM that I got. Come here, come back to display. Get rid of that 4090 pick and go back to display capture. Enable. And here we are. G-Skill Trident Z5 RGB series Intel XMP 32 gigs. 2 modules at 16 gigabytes apiece. DDR5 6000. So it seems to me like this RAM retails for, right here it's showing $240. I got it off, I paid $180 on eBay. So the person that I'm buying it from has been a member since 2006, and I guess they've sold over 1,500 items over the years. And he hasn't had any negative feedback in the past 12 months. So I just went ahead and paid it. So hopefully, if he mails it out immediately, I should get it by this Friday. And when I get it, basically, I'll have to tear the computer apart and rebuild it. And then I'll be back to running some more benchmarks. And I'm hoping that with that speed of DDR5 RAM, hopefully it'll give me a little bit more speed. But ultimately, from what I'm seeing, if I want to take full advantage of that 4090, not only would I need DDR5 RAM, I would need a 13900K, which I'm not going to buy one of those yet. If I buy it, because I'm going to be spending a little bit of money here soon. Go back to the 4090 pick. Because what I got going on is I was lucky enough to get the email from Sony. So I'll be able to order a PSVR 2, which I will be ordering that. And I've got to have my car's damn it, I say that backwards. I got to have my son's car towed back to town so I can have it sent to the shop. I've got that. I just spent the $180 on that RAM. Now this motherboard, I actually got over like a fat rat on this motherboard. This motherboard retails for $360. It was on sale on Amazon for $200, and I already had a $100 Amazon gift card that I got from my job from a raffle that they had. So plus tax, I only came out of pocket $119 for this motherboard. So I made out like a fat rat on this motherboard. So since getting this 4090, I have upgraded all of my PCs. So naturally, I put the 4090 in the big PC. This PC used to have a 3070 in it. I took the 3080 Ti that was in the big PC and I put it in this one. The 3070 that used to be in this PC, I put it in the PC in the bedroom. So now I have a loose 2070 laying around doing nothing. So it's actually going to be time for me to start selling off some stuff here that I know I'm not going to be using. That 2070, my son wanted me to keep it for backup, but I really don't see the point. So I'll probably be putting that up for sale. Once I change that motherboard, my motherboard that's in the computer now will be going up for sale, and that is a MSI Z690 Pro DDR4. When I bought that, it retailed for $360. And then right now, the PC currently has 64 gigs of DDR4 at 3600. And these are RGB sticks for 4x16. So I'll be selling that. I think it's time for me to go ahead and part ways with my PS4 Pro and my PSVR. How's the G2 FOV? It's small. I think it's 90. I think it's 90 degrees of FOV, just like the Quest, if I'm not mistaken. But I will say this about the G2: the sweet spot is extra sharp. Now this is where the power of the 4090 comes in. At 2160p, everything you see through the sweet spot is sharp. Everything outside of the sweet spot is blurry. But once I cranked that headset up to 3100p, everything within that sweet spot was razor sharp. I mean, ACC never looked so good. Everything outside of the sweet spot, while it wasn't razor sharp, it wasn't blurry either. It was clean enough that whenever I would run races, I could actually move my eyes around and not have to turn my head wherever I was looking. So, but yeah, the FOV, I believe, is about the same as the Quest 2. But I have to be honest, if you were to ask me which headset, I would recommend the Quest 2. And that's because I think it takes a little bit more to run the G2. Not only that, with the G2, you have two refresh rate options. You've got 60 and 90 hertz. 60 hertz looks like dog shit. Bottom line is, with the G2, anything under 80 hertz is skittish. It is not smooth. If you can get something to run at 80, 90 hertz on the G2, it's gorgeous how smooth it looks. Whereas the Quest 2, you have four options. You have 72 hertz, 80, 90, and 120. And the Quest 2, 72 hertz even looks smooth. There's like minimal reprojection look, as I would say. It's minimal. When it comes to sim racing, on the straights, everything's buttery smooth. When you get to the corner, yeah, it looks a little bit skittish, but compared to the G2, it's definitely tolerable. But the G2, whew, like I said, anything under 80 hertz, you see it when you go through the corners. You see the frame dips. Price wise, I think the G2, when it first came out, retail for $600, but the headset is always going on sale. I mean, it just recently it was on sale for $350, and I went to the HP site to try to buy it, but by the time I finally got there, the sale was over and it was back up to $550. So I went on eBay and I was able to find a G2 for $200, and it's like damn near new condition. I will say this about the G2: in addition to that very sharp sweet spot, the built-in headphones are pretty damn good too. When I was playing Contractors, the guns had a little bit of bass when you were firing. So and I think that's the last part that I meant to get to, is native VR games. Do you need the 4090 for native VR games? I would say for the most part, no. If you've got a 3080 Ti, I would say no. The majority of native VR games, you can run them at max settings and still get great performance. That being said, I think the only people who would probably feel like they need a 4090 would be the people that want to run games like Flight Simulator at the highest possible frame rate, because that game is so demanding that you still need DLSS to get over 60 frames. Even the 4090 with raw rasterization, I think from the videos that I've seen, still puts out about 48 frames per second raw rasterization. But with the DLSS 3 frame generation, I think you can get about, I think it was like 90 frames, 80 frames, 90. But you guys can check it out. So that would be a scenario where you would need where you would want the 4090. And maybe a game like Cyberpunk. Because raw, you can hit 60 frames per second raw with the 4090. Probably a little bit faster if you got DDR5 and you got a 13900K, then you could probably get a few more frames. I would probably say 60 or 70 frames raw rasterization with DLSS on auto like I did. I'm sure you could probably get anywhere from 90 to 100 frames. So that was one of the scenarios where I think people might feel like they would want a 4090. Situation like mine, ACC in VR, you need all the horsepower you can get because how poorly that game is optimized in VR. Or if you're one of the people who want the shiny new hardware, that would be a scenario. Or maybe for video editing, that could be a scenario. But I can't really speak to that because I don't really know the ins and outs of the specs you would need to produce certain type of videos as far as video editing goes. But I guess that's where the 24 gigs of VRAM comes in. I don't know. So those are the scenarios. So to put a bow on it, this is assuming you have a 3080 Ti. Native VR games, would you need a 4090? Especially if you're using a Quest 2, probably not. If you're using a G2, most of the games, yeah, you can still run them 90. You can still run them at 90 hertz at max settings, but there's a few of them that, yeah, you'd have to manipulate the settings. But if you're running a Rift S, no. For native VR games on a Rift S with a 3080 Ti, no, I don't think you need a 4090. Sim racing games in VR. For ACC, yeah, I think you would need a 4090. Project Cars 2, yeah, I think you would need a 4090. This is in VR if you want to get the, if you want to max it out and get good performance. Automobilista 2 and F122, I'm leaning towards saying no, you don't need a 4090, but if you want to get one, that's fine. And then the flat screen games. Coming back to what I originally said, Flight Simulator, Cyberpunk, other than games like that, no, I don't think you need a 4090. Because I think 4K 60 is good enough. So my PC in its current state, as I said, I guess it depends on how the computer feels that day. So from looks like I can get anywhere from 90 to 115 frames per second raw rasterization without DLSS. And so with that, I'm hoping to put this new motherboard in the computer this weekend. And if all goes well and the DDR5 is here in time, I'll do a couple of more benchmarks. I think I've got one or two more benchmark videos coming out. 3080 Ti versus 4090 on F122. And possibly 3080 Ti versus 4090 on Project Cars 2. Thoughts on replacement on recent PSVR, PlayStation VR announcements. Good to see you, Dan Sock. The big topic about whether PSVR 2 is too expensive. When PSVR, damn, my arms is ashy as hell. Damn, I look gray. Shit, I look charcoal. In any case, PSVR, the original PSVR when it first came out, was $500 for the headset that came with the Move controllers. I thought that was too much at the time because it cost $500, but yet the PS4 Pro was $400. And I was a firm believer that your peripheral should never cost more than your base. I was a firm believer that the custom wheels on your car should never cost more than the car itself. That being said, I thought the original PSVR was too expensive until I checked out the PC VR scene. Because the big three headsets that were out at the time when PSVR came out was PSVR, the Oculus Rift CV1, and the HTC Vive. PSVR was the cheapest of the three at $500. The Oculus Rift CV1 at the time was $600, and the HTC Vive was $700. I said, holy shit. And then, to make it even worse, the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift CV1 at the time, you needed at least a $1,000 PC to be able to run those headsets. So you're looking at $1,700. So when you look at PSVR, $500 for the headset, $900 for the $400 for the console, for a total of $900. That's almost half the price. Now you fast forward to PSVR 2. If you know the VR, if you know VR, the price is well worth it. Let's see here, Dan Socks. Imagine VR in 9 years. Oh my fucking God, it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna get good now, because I think now that PSVR is out, and assuming it appeals to the mainstream, devs are going to start shifting their focus back to developing games for PSVR and PC VR. Right now, for PC VR, I don't want to use the word dry, but there's nothing compelling coming out, because a lot of devs are developing for the Quest, and in some cases, they have given some very lackluster ports. In my opinion, I've seen some ports where the Quest version didn't look any different than the PC version. But coming back to PlayStation VR, you will not find a headset, a PC headset with foveated eye rendering, with HDR, haptics in both the controllers and the headset, for less than $600. You have headsets like I think it's the Vario Aero. I think that headset's $1,800. I think the Vive Pro is like $17. It's either $1,700 or $1,500. The Quest Pro is $1,500. The Pimax, I think those headsets, I think the Pimax 5K, that might be an $800 headset, $700 headset. But I think like the Pimax 8K, I think that might be damn near a $2,000 headset. So if the PlayStation VR 2 was a PC headset, in my opinion, it would cost no less than $800. That being said, you could, so okay, it's $1,000. Okay, yikes. I assume you're talking about the Pimax 5K. In any case, if people want to say that the PlayStation VR is too expensive for them, or that it costs a little bit more than they were hoping, okay, I can accept that. But to say that it's too expensive, generally speaking, I disagree with that, given the landscape on PC. And that's why I made that post when I said on Twitter that if you think PSVR 2 is too expensive, then you don't know shit about the VR landscape, because they have no idea how much these headsets cost over here on PC. And with today's prices, with inflation and shit like that, you would need at least a $1,500 PC to power those headsets. I've totaled up, now that I've upgraded all three of my PCs, I've totaled what my PCs cost before tax and shipping what I paid for them. And all three of my PCs total up close to $8,000. Pimax Crystal will be $1,500. Yikes. That PC in there with the 4090 in it, I've got about $4,100 into that PC. This PC right here that I'm sitting at, now that I put the 3080 Ti in there, because I paid $1,400 for it from a scalper. So if you include that cost, I've got $2,500 into this PC that I'm sitting at right here. And then my PC in the bedroom, now that I put the 3070 Ti into that one, I've got over $1,800 into that PC. So yeah, I've got close to $8,000 into my 3 gaming PCs. And then I've got about $3,000 into my sim racing equipment. And then I've got 5 headsets in here. I have a PSVR. I have 2 Oculus Quest 2s. So yeah, I said a PSVR, 2 Oculus Quest 2s, an Oculus Rift, and an HP Reverb G2. So yeah, I got 5 headsets in here. So I have sunk a lot of money into gaming and into VR. So I think I'm about ready to wrap it up. Throat's getting a little raspy, scratchy, and I'm getting hungry. But I definitely want to thank you all for tuning in and giving my thoughts on the 4090. Really, really appreciate it. And I would say stay tuned for a couple of more benchmark videos. And then once I get all this benchmark shit out of my system, I will get back to the LFM races. One of the reasons why you, in addition to the benchmark videos, one of the reasons why you have not seen LFM races coming out of me is because this season is off to a disastrous start for me. I think every race that I've competed in, I have wrecked. And my last race, I got reported. So I took a serious hit on safety rating and ELO. No Man's Sky, benchmarked soon, Lincoln. Okay, I will do that. I did not get a chance to benchmark it with the 3080 Ti, but what I will do is I will benchmark it in the next couple of days with the PC in its current state, and then I will come back and benchmark it again once I get the new motherboard in there with the DDR5 RAM. So we'll see how much of a difference that will make. With that, Cold Yogurt, good luck on getting a 4090 Ti. You have a 3080. So if you want to buy a 4090 Ti, that is a slippery slope because of this melting plug situation. If someone were to ask me, especially because of this melting plug situation, I would probably recommend it. If they really want to go ahead and get one, I would recommend getting the Founders Edition, this card that you're looking at right here in this pic. It's the cheapest, and since Nvidia invented it, I kind of expect the creator of this to probably be able to do it best. But that's not always the case, but I just trust it more. So I would recommend the Founders Edition, and I don't think the plug for the Founders Edition will melt. Anybody else, I just don't know. Or you can wait until this plug issue gets resolved. Nvidia is looking into it, and we'll see what happens from there. So I would say if you can wait, I would probably say wait until this melted plug issue is resolved. But if you feel like you cannot wait and you want to get your hands on one ASAP, then I would recommend going for the Founders Edition. Not only that, that Founders Edition, that 4090 does not run hot. I think the warmest I've ever seen a game run with that 4090 was 70 degrees. Most games that I run on that 4090 run between 55 and 65 degrees. Whereas with this 3070 Ti and this 3080 Ti, they run in the high 80s. Damn near any game I play on those cards, I'm getting temperatures around 88 degrees. So I've rambled and I rambled and I rambled. So I'm going to go ahead and boogie on out of here. Thanks for watching. Next time I'll try to have some lotion on these ashy ass arms. Sorry about that, folks. And hopefully we will see you guys more sooner than later. Until the next time, thanks for watching. You all know the line. Wakanda forever. Long live the king. And deuces. We'll see you soon. Everyone have a good day.